Joining us on the Easter Automotive Hotline, Hurricanes.com reporter Walt Ruff. Walt, we bring you on because we want to talk to you about Griffin Mendel. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Although, when you drop a little nugget like that on day 3 of free agency, it's kind of hard not to notice the Canes have signed blank, because if you look at it on a small screen like an iPad or a smartphone or whatever it is, you're like, oh, did they just sign somebody cool? And then you're like, hey, Griffin Mendel.
Well, that's part of the intrigue, right? That's why for all my folks that have push notifications on, you always got to start with the first couple of words. You got to lure them in, get them to open it up or click, and then maybe sometimes it's exciting, maybe not, right? That's all part of the allure.
Well, Walt, we open up here with the obvious, the renewals of Antti Raanta, Freddie Anderson, Jesper Fast, who are coming back, but I think everyone's really curious about the new guys that are coming in. And again, I joke about Mendel, but there's got to be a reasoning why he's being signed at essentially league minimum. But let's start with Orlov, who will wear number 7 this season, as announced by the team here in the last half an hour. Orlov, everyone has said all the right things about this guy. I had him rated very high when it came to free agency as a defenseman. Wasn't sure if it was going to be this kind of a pickup for the Carolina Hurricanes, but everyone's calling it nearly a perfect glove fit. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that for sure. I mean, like you had said, many around the sport had him as the number 1 available option for any free agent this summer. And anytime you can land a player of that caliber, it's obviously an exciting time for the organization. He's somebody who's been a top pairing defenseman over the course of his career. He became a full-time defenseman during the 2015-16 season with Washington and spent a great deal of his time there and just really racked up a whole lot of accolades since then. Since he's become a full-time NHLer, he's 11th in takeaways. He's 14th in even strength points. He gets it done during the 3-on-3 and overtime. So there's really a lot to be excited about when it comes to Dmitry Orlov.
Walt Ruff, Hurricanes.com reporter, joined us this afternoon on 999 The Fan. Walt, during Michael Bunting's media availability earlier today, you guys drew a connection with each other. You guys kind of had a background, or you covering him during some time of his career, but he also had some connections to some players already here in Carolina. If you just wouldn't mind expanding on the relationship that he has with some of his new teammates already that he's going to be playing with this season.
Yeah, he's got a good connection with Frederik Andersen because, of course, goaltender Frederik Andersen and Toronto Maple Leafs forward Austin Matthews are very close friends, and that trio knows each other well just from being around one another and then dating back to his time in Arizona, from where I was fortunate enough to get to know Michael. He knows Antti Raanta. Antti made 1 appearance in the American Hockey League during their time together down in Tucson, and then played a couple games together up with the Coyotes. As you referenced a moment ago there, I was able to be Michael's media guy, if you will, in Tucson from 2017 to 2020. What I love telling people most, I think people are going to love his story. He's a guy who's had to work for everything that he's earned in his career, and that's not to say that others haven't, but he's not your prototypical draft, play a year or 2 in the American League and become an NHLer. He played 6 seasons in the minors with the Arizona Coyotes. He played over 300 games. He was truthfully projected to be about a middle 6 forward, still kind of finding his way in the sport and where he would hang in the pro levels, and took a deal with his hometown club for basically veteran minimum 2 years ago to go to Toronto. And kind of in the blink of an eye, it felt like he was playing alongside Austin Matthews, and now he's a 20-plus goal scorer. He is going to bring an element that some Canes fans have been calling for over the last few seasons, and a little bit of bite, a little bit of edge to his game. He's not going to be out there dropping the gloves left and right, but he just knows how to get under the skin of the opponents. He's not afraid to go to the front of the net. He goes really hard into the corner. So obviously, in a personal level, I love the pickup, but on a professional level, I think that he really does check a couple of boxes for this team at this time.
Okay, Walt, so he checks the boxes, but this is where I'm going to come at you a little bit. He played on the top line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. I think you could be on that top line and be prolific as well. So I think he's going to have something to prove if he's not on a line, say, with Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, or whoever Rod decides to change things up.
Definitely. I think it's a very fair question and assessment. You are not incorrect in saying that those are 2 of the easier guys around the league to play with, so he certainly does have something to prove. And he touched on that during his media availability this afternoon, and he said, listen, having something to prove is basically what got me to where I was in Toronto, because after his time in Arizona, he felt like he had more to offer. He just needed somewhere to showcase it. And he didn't wind up on that line with Matthews and Marner by chance. Of course, that's a very talented Toronto roster that has a bunch of guys who could just slot it in at that role. So, yes, it's very fair in saying that he does have something to prove here. So whether he winds up playing to the left of, I don't know, someone like Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis, or if he finds himself a little bit further down the line, potentially playing alongside, let's just say, Jordan Staal and Jesper Foss for the sake of the moment. But he's a worker. He's an absolute worker. He's going to be out there. He's one of those guys who, when he's on the ice, you'll see him giving 110%. And I say that because, maybe he's not the smoothest skater in the world. Maybe he doesn't, he might not be in the conversation for the Selke Trophy year in and year out. But when he's out there, he's going to be doing his best to give it all that he's got. And I think that that's something that, knowing this fan base and how they appreciate guys who just go out there and go hard, especially in the combination of playing with Rod Brindamore, too. We know he loves those things. I think he's going to be a really, really good fit here.
Walt Ruff, Hurricanes.com reporter, joined us this afternoon on The Fan. Speaking of the fan base, Walt, well, a lot of times you might hear fans say the Hurricanes need a more physical player. They need a more aggressive player. Well, I feel like you're getting that out of these two guys, but who do you think is going to bring the physicality more to the team as far as maybe stand up to the opposition or forechecking another guy? Who's going to bring the physicality between Orlov and Bunting, you think?
That's That's a really good question. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer between the two. I think Orlov's physicality comes along the lines of guys trying to get into the zone. And just some of my mental memories with him is, you come across the Hurricanes blue line and you've got your head down, you're going to be in trouble because Dmitry Orlov knows how to lower his shoulder well. He's delivered some thunderous hits over the years. And then in a little bit of a different way, Michael Bunting brings the element of, okay, you just laid a hit on our star player. I'm going to come over and say something to you about it. And again, he might not be out there dropping the gloves and trying to throw haymakers left and right, but what he's going to do is he's going to come over and try to get under your skin and see if he can draw another penalty there to, whether it be even it up or send it to a potential power play situation. That's the role that he's going to bring. And just kind of hanging out and around in front of the crease area. We know that sometimes goaltenders don't like that. Defensemen don't like that. He's never afraid to have his skates in or near the paint. So it's just a guy he's an agitator. He's really difficult to play against. So I think both guys certainly add to that realm with the Hurricanes' current lineup.
So what you're telling me, Walt, is that we might see Orlov get retribution for Andrei Svechnikov from the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2019 against his former teammate, Alex Ovechkin, when Ovechkin knocked out Svechnikov in Game 3 of that opening round. Is that what we're going to see?
Well, I think that might be a little bit of a reach given how tight Dmitry Orlov and Alexander Ovechkin are. But if there are other players around the league that have exceptions, I don't think that Dmitry Orlov would be too shy to back down from them.
Yeah, I don't want this to be a Paul Walker, Vin Diesel kind of thing in Fast Five where he let off at the line. I'm like, Orlov had just better lay Ovechkin out at this point. Walt Ruff, Hurricanes.com reporter, joining us here on the Heister Automotive Hotline. Walt, before we let you go, Don Waddell mentioned that there is still a deal in principle for Tony DeAngelo as we see Canes players come and go. How realistic is that deal at this point? Now, with the signing of Orlov, you're committing an awful lot of money to defense on a team that is really paying a lot on that side of the puck, so to speak.
Yeah, I will be honest with you. I was a little bit surprised to hear Don be as clear as he was when he was asked about that transaction on Saturday, or should I say the pending transaction. He said outright, we have a deal agreed to in principle with Philadelphia. So I think it's pretty likely that this time next week, Tony DeAngelo could be a Carolina Hurricane. Of course, the deal cannot be processed until after July 9th. The July 9th of last year was when Tony was traded from Carolina to Philadelphia. Of course, part of the rumored package deal is that Philadelphia will be retaining 50% of Tony's contract. And that's what makes the current holdup for the situation. But, yeah, it sounds pretty likely that that's going to transpire potentially as soon as next Monday. But it's a great question because that gives Carolina 7 legitimate options on the blue line. And then I know rumors are rumors, but there's some significant discussions about Erik Karlsson as well. So that leaves me excited about what is left to come for the Carolina Hurricanes. You've already landed the top available free agent bolstering the blue line. You've got a guy who scored 20 goals in both of the last 2 seasons, and now it looks like they're only working on making an already top NHL blue line stronger. I would be curious to see if maybe one of those options, whether it be the 7 or 8 names back there, if one of them gets flipped for a scoring forward. You would just have to think that that's a possibility based on the fact that you don't need 8 every night defensemen. So again, that, it leaves me eager to see what could be coming next, because it shows to me that the team is happy with where they're at, but they're not satisfied and feeling like they've completed their roster just yet.
Well, I know your office is just down the hall from Don, so what I suggest is grab one of those little glasses, like a cup or a shot glass, and just put your ear up to the wall, and then just let us know when something's going down, okay?
I can do that for you, fellas.
All right. Well, appreciate you, man. Thanks for catching up.
Thanks, guys. Always good to chat.